Thank you everyone for coming. We'll go ahead and get started. We're probably going to get some stream of people still coming in, but welcome to our breakout session. This is Preparing NetSuite Data and Processes for Reporting and Analytics. And this is hosted by iCharts. And my name is Rico Andrade. I'm the head of marketing over at iCharts. And iCharts is a BI and analytics tool that's built natively inside of NetSuite. So we are all about making it as easy as possible for you to take your NetSuite data and be able to write in your NetSuite dashboard, write in your portlets to be able to slice and dice that data in real time without needing to export it out of NetSuite, without needing to put into Excel, put it into other systems. You can just set up your dashboards once and they automatically update. And the interesting thing about this journey is that with iCharts and NetSuite, it's fairly easy to make that happen once you're at that point. But oftentimes, there's a whole other set of decisions that need to be made ahead of time that will determine what analytics you want, what sort of processes, what sort of data do you want to visualize in the first place. And at iCharts, we do have a team that helps guide our customers through that process because it's very new to a lot of people. And what we also have here are these are iCharts customers, but also NetSuite experts who have gone through this journey of preparing NetSuite for BI and analytics, well beyond just iCharts, by the way, to be able to run their particular processes. So I'd like to introduce our guests. Have to throw a cautionary note in there. So we're going to introduce our panelists and their companies real quick, and then I'm going to just quickly introduce you to iCharts because it's relevant to the conversation in terms of understanding what you're going to be able to visualize, and in particular the new product that we just launched last week that is going live that perhaps many of you have already demoed downstairs. And then we're going to go into the conversation, and conversation really, 45 minutes, plus Q&A could be really short actually, because there's just a wealth of information and hard-learned lessons that's come from these gentlemen. And so hopefully you can also continue the conversation afterwards and make your own processes a lot easier. So I'm going to start with Brian Bishop to the right. Brian is the Director of Supply Chain and Export Control Officer at Acoustica Bosch. You want to talk a little about Acoustica?
Yeah. So we make little tiny microphones that go into smartphones, laptops, anything that needs a little microphone. It's with MEMS technology, so it's an IC. We're basically a fabless company, so we're entirely outsourced in Europe and Asia. In 2014, aside from running supply chain, I'm kind of a old, I guess, programming data geek, so they gave me the fun role of tearing up every IT system that we have, putting in NetSuite, we put in Del Boomi to integrate with our vendors, we of course put in iCharts to visualize it all, we now even use Autodesk PLM, but basically we use that to connect to our supply chain around the world, even though we don't own the sites, bring it all back into NetSuite, make the transactions in NetSuite, and again, iCharts to visualize it. So 2014, kind of the point of one of the big points of the discussion today is we got to prep all our data, figure out how to take all our existing data structures, existing systems, move all the data into NetSuite, and make it all work while not breaking the business in a year we were massively expanding. And I'm still sitting here, which means we are actually successful in doing that.
Great. Then I'd like to introduce Jonathan Holy from Bailey International. He's a marketing analyst and coming from Tennessee. And I got to visit the operation. It's pretty wonderful. You want to tell us a little bit about Bailey?
Sure. Bailey International is a manufacturer and distributor of hydraulic equipment, mainly cylinders and hydraulic power units. But we manufacture in Knoxville, Tennessee. We have a couple of 3PLs we use across the U.S. We source from China, India, Bulgaria. We have tens of thousands of SKUs that we distribute across the country. So we have engineering, we do systems integration, and then build custom units as well. So.
And what's the extent of the NetSuite implementation?
Yeah, so we've been using NetSuite a little over 3 years now. My role is a marketing analyst, but I really kind of touch all things because I made the mistake of learning how to use NetSuite. But we have 2 websites running on SuiteCommerce Advanced. We just implemented Bronto last month. Actually, I'm excited about that. I've been pushing for a little bit. We use iCharts. We use SPS Commerce. We use basically every NetSuite partner there is, and we have multiple subsidiaries that are all running on one world, and it's worked pretty well so far. So.
Great. And then I'd like to introduce Gary Safadi. He's the Chief Technology Officer at Candy.com, which is a pretty awesome facility as well that I got to see in Braintree. So it's Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory there. And he's also providing all the candy at the iCharts booth if you guys come visit downstairs. So you want to tell us about candy?
Yeah, well, it's a topic that I think everyone here can speak to and has their own, which side they like it. Do they want the sweet, do they want the sour, they want the chewies and everything. But Candy.com started out as the online candy store. You used to be able to go on there and you place some orders, but it really started developing when retail markets got involved and wanted us to come and distribute for them. So when you go to a lot of the major retailers now and you go online and you order your candy, those orders come to us and we have to fulfill those orders, and we do them on a white label. So you think you're getting it from one location, and you are. It's just our location. So we use NetSuite as the order management tool. We use it to track all our, with RF Smart, with the picking and packing. Del Boomi, which we incorporated. We brought all our EDI in-house. We used to have it outsourced. We brought it all in-house. We hired both the professional services that Boomi offers, as well as a gentleman that knows more about EDI and probably have forgotten more than this room will ever know. We've been fortunate with that. And we, with iCharts, started looking to really how to get reports, because I love data. Data's great. I always tell people, you know, this is a common expression. You can lie about the data, but the data doesn't lie. So when we started looking through the data and realizing every day of the week, our order volumes were consistent with the previous same day of the week, and we started what we call the hump chart. And when we met up with iCharts, we said, this is our Excel chart. This is what we need to have. And my boss keeps wanting me to say, put it on my dashboard. I can't put it on a dashboard because there was nothing in NetSuite that would let me take the save search and turn it into something. And iCharts proved that you can do that. So not to go into a lot of detail, but we started setting up market segments. We have management, we have finance, we have the warehouse, and based upon those dashboards in your role, we expose different parts of the data. And we've seen huge savings in just with our resource balancing, because not only do we know what day the order is coming in, but we actually know the time of the day, so we can actually move our shifts around to have the people not standing around and eating the profits, but rather shipping it.
And so just before we start the discussion, last year we did this discussion. I didn't show a visual of what actually iCharts looks like, so I'm going to, just to set the context, and then we'll get into the BI. But can I show a video? There we go. Go back to presentation. So as I mentioned, this is going to be a fairly free-flowing topic, but I want to start at the very top. Just from a very, very basic perspective, what is the difference between setting up NetSuite for like regular day-to-day operation versus how you have to think of it for analytics and reports and visual reporting?
So I think that I think unfortunately a lot of times, and you can make the argument both ways, maybe correctly so, you have to take care of your transactions, your bills, your invoices, your shipping, your inventory tracking. I mean, you have to have the nuts and bolts in place first, and I think a lot of times analytics is looked at as an afterthought. One of the big problems with that is if you're not setting it up from the get-go with analytics in mind, you're not structuring your data properly or not giving yourself the path to get those analytics easily made on the other side. So I think it takes, from the beginning, I always recommend that people look at both options. Where do you want to get from an analytics perspective? But obviously you have to have the nuts and bolts taken care of up front. But it is, in a way, too different. It's kind of a Venn diagram. You need to do a little bit more to prepare for analytics, but you have to have the core of the nuts and bolts, the invoices, et cetera, in place.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the big things that I have to do, and just a quick little story, I had a conversation with my CEO the other day because he wanted something and I had to tell him no because at the end of the day, what he wanted, while nice, wasn't really going to be useful for the business. And so we had those discussions a lot. It's not just setting up your data, and yeah, you can analyze things all day long. I mean, the great thing about NetSuite is you have tons of data. The bad thing about NetSuite is you have tons of data. And so figuring out what the end goal is and what you can actually, make action on at the end of the day is important, and then setting up your data to be able to get to those results that you can actually grow the business with. That's important from the outset.
So just to add to that, one of the kind of common examples that happens when someone comes to us and into our customer success team is that, okay, great, want to create this report, but they've set up the data structure itself without, thinking about the long-term consequence. So for example, instead of using a field, they might have used, just a description field for people just to type in the information, and so you want to parse out that information later, and you can't do it. Or, you're switching the status of a process, and it would have made life so much easier if a little timestamp was added, where then you can figure out how long, each thing stayed in the process versus just knowing where each thing is in a particular process. So thinking a little bit ahead, about what would we want to analyze later really saves a lot of headache, especially if you've, might have been doing this for years and then you can't really dig deep on that.
Yeah, and I concur with that because in the IT world, been doing it for 30-something years, and it's very akin to building a house. You can build anything when you start, but when you have the foundation, and someone says, that's great, but it has to go up 40 stories or it has to go wide. If you don't have the forethought of what you're looking for, you have a problem trying to expand on it. And even when you do the analytics, even when you do the key analysis and everyone signs off and you do your due diligence and you deliver the product, they go, that's great, but it doesn't do anything that helps us. And one of the things that we've learned with iCharts is that we stopped telling people what they needed. The application now has filtering, has the ability to go through and sort, and we just give them all the raw data. We took out everything. Whoever works with saved search, as you know, you group it, you sum it, you sort it, you convert it, and it's never what you're expecting. And iCharts came to me and said, why the heck are you doing that? And I'm like, well, is that how you're supposed to do it? They said, no, just give us the data. And iCharts does all the grouping, all the summing, all the filtering. And when we put it on the dashboard, management can click the buttons and do the analysis and recalibrate and get everything. So the more data you can give them, to your point, it's great, it has data, but it's got a lot of data. But the more data you give them that they can control, the better the decision making is.
So probably the broadest question of all is, and this happens a lot, you get the sense of, I know that analytics, real-time analytics makes sense for my company, but where do I start? And all of you have gotten fairly far in that process and continuously evolving. But what is there, how do you think about it? What do you prioritize? What is the first thing that, what is the plan that you make towards, knowing what eventually you want to show?
So a couple things. So in our business, when we started, when we put in NetSuite, our old systems didn't connect that well to our factories. We were syncing our books about once a month, yet we were financially responsible across our entire supply chain for the inventory. So we had to step back and say, okay, it would be great to know what's at our factories. We own the inventory, we don't own the factories. So what did they start? What did they output? What's their yields? And these are great questions, but then you have to go back a step and say, well, what's the foundation required to actually make that? And that was where, as I said, we went down the road of putting in Boomi to connect to all the data. And once we started connecting to each factory, we said which transactions are in there. It was kind of financially driven, as a lot of you have probably gotten into. Where do you actually want to cost the goods? And then we kind of stepped back to say, this is the stuff that would be nice to have for everyone. This is the stuff we need for finance. And then we turned back around and said, okay, now again, what was that list of stuff up front where we said, okay, we want to know starts and outs from each stage. We want to know what's at our warehouse. We want to know what's in transit. And that kind of set down the road to say, these are the end data sets and end graphs that we'd like to see. Do we have the supporting data with our data design from the beginning? So it was kind of an iterative process of going back and forth. Now, I told an interesting story. Did I get to the meat of your question?
Why, just, what is that first, you don't know where to start. So where do you start? Or what would you say, like looking back at it, I would have started by this?
Well, again, I think the start of it was both financially, what does finance need to run their operation, Sales team, what do they need? And then myself, I'm an ops guy. What do I want out of the factories as nice to haves? And in reality, even though it was me leading the project, I ended up not getting all of my wishes because I determined we actually didn't need them to get to the end visualization that we needed. So starting point, talking to your functional groups, taking down that first list of what do they need to do their jobs. And that's the best starting point.
So let me dig deeper on that specifically, because this comes up a lot for us, and it's that idea of company buy-in, the participation, and so talk a little bit about the importance of that and how you reach out to the group and make sure that everyone is in agreement basically on the single source of truth.
Well, you have a big company, you never have agreement. So what you have is the person who writes the check, and they get the first graph. So we were given an initiative of bringing the product in, and in 6 months having it up and running. And we had the chart again with the pivot table where we were working, and we said, all right, that's the first one. And when I say we, it was the iCharts support team, myself, because I do the NetSuite development. So when we put the chart in place and we put it on the dashboard, and they went, well, they said, wow, but not really wow, but they said, wow, this is exactly what we wanted, so what are you gonna do with the next 5 months and 3 weeks? So what we did is we figured out where's the money coming from. The money's coming from the warehouse, and we started doing all our reports on the warehouse. We knew that we were getting orders out on a daily basis. We knew how many things were being picked, but we didn't have any visibility. And when you have 25, 30, 40 workers on a shift, and the final numbers are good, you have no transparency down to the level. So we said, all right, I know who you are, and you, and I'm gonna put you all on the chart. And we know how many orders you picked, we know how many items per order you picked, and then we had an average. And we maintained team goals. The day shift will ship so many items, the night shift will ship so many items, the individuals will have a goal. We've turned it into a positive with incentives, employee of the month. It became a great motivational tool. There was a little fear factor because those that weren't doing well couldn't hide behind the numbers on a strong shift. But it also became so competitive that at the end of the day, I'm like, oh my God, how can you be 10 orders ahead of me? I'm staying a little bit longer to catch up and everything because nobody likes to be number 2. So the key for buy-in is whoever writes the check, give them something, and then say, don't worry about it. And then they go away, and then you do everything else, and then when they need something, you're like, yeah, I can do that, don't worry about it. And then you go, hey, Rico, what's Eric doing? Yeah, because I really need this next week, so.
Is that what you guys did too?
No, absolutely not. No. I told my CEO, no, we don't do that. No, I think to illustrate a great project we're working on right now is reworking our quote workflow throughout our business and sitting down, like you mentioned, with all the functional teams and what's necessary for them to get out of it. Obviously huge, you got to get that buy-in from them. But then figuring out what are ways that you can maximize NetSuite and maybe have to change your business a little bit. And that's something that we're a PE-owned company that started out as a small family business, and it's been difficult for people that have been there for 40 years to change their processes. But moving that into NetSuite and being able to shift people and realize how they can better do their jobs, and then get the pieces of information they need out of it, and then the actionable items because of that. It's a slow process, but if you really show people the light, I think they're happy to come around eventually.
And I'll add one more thing on that. Enrico and I talked a little bit about this before. Part of it is picking your team, but also picking the people for the buy-in process, and it's strategic. So I like to, when I pitch projects, I like them to be slam dunks. I like to get approvals for it and then move forward with it. And I've watched people go up, pitch projects, get turned down, get in fights in meetings, the groups don't agree. I like to walk in with the people that I know who get it and who need to be in agreement to go forward. Those people have already got convinced, those people are already going to go forward with it. So it's very important to pick the right people. And as I told Rico before, sometimes feelings get hurt. Sometimes maybe people don't get included on the team. They say politically you need to include this person and this person, but you have to look at how you're going to get the project in. If you need to bring something up, what'd you say, 6 months or 6 weeks, whatever you said?
Yeah.
Bringing something up in a short time, we're adults and we're not messing around with this. You have to pick the right team, get the buy-in, move forward, and make sure that the people from each functional group who, as I say, in lack of a better way, say they get it, and they're going to be able to be the decision makers and help you move it forward. So, but you have to be a good analyst when you're running a project.
Well, that's the problem with your slam dunk projects. I mean, you got Del Boomi, you got iCharts. Every other vendor's like, oh crap, because both of them are pretty slam dunk. I mean, both of them are pretty instrumental to your success, to our success, and we turned them all around in each project we did in under 6 months, both you guys and with Boomi.
But you have to pick right. Software and people, right? There you go.
Software
I'll add
and
software in
people.
there too, but you got to pick right.
Yeah, and caffeine. Totally caffeine.
And candy. I want to just dig into something that you said that feels like something that you two might have a disagreement on, but that is on the discussion on over-customization of NetSuite. Because that led to some problems on your front, if I understand correctly. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. I was in the manufacturing and distribution keynote earlier, and I forget her name. She was talking about how great it is that you can customize NetSuite, and I cringed a little bit. We have run into multiple issues where, like I said, it's great that NetSuite is customizable, don't get me wrong, but there is a certain line you can get to where you lose the native functionality of NetSuite, and the native functionality is pretty cool. So now I had people come to me all the time, hey, can I get a report for this? And I would show them the list of native reports in NetSuite, and I go, it's already here, but you can't use it because you customize this and this and this, and it's broken now. It's not bad to customize, and we've got a million customizations. It's fine, but when you do it, really think through how much can I do natively? How much is this going to affect the native functionality of NetSuite? And are you going down a path that you can't come back from? And in many cases, we've spent a lot of time and money unraveling this mess that we've created of customizations.
So do I got a counter now?
Yeah, or agree.
Okay.
I love customization. So I always, when I was pitching the project, I said customization is not a bad word. Everybody, I know within my parent company's world, within Bosch's world, I know when they run a big box ERP. I'm the only division that was allowed to go out and run a smaller or a cloud-based ERP. And their thinking was, can a smaller division run more efficiently with a cloud-based ERP? And they like the results of what we've done, and there's other divisions that have looked at it. So when I started looking at the customizations, I guess to even start out, when I first opened NetSuite after we bought it, I looked at a vanilla instance, as probably many of you who put in NetSuite did, and I said, oh my God, they're going to kill me. What am I going to do with this? This does not look like how to run a semiconductor business. And we started from there with the customization. Now, even 6 months, actually we implemented in about 3.5 months, whatever, and within 3 months, it was already looking like a semiconductor business. I could see how to build microphones in Asia, and I could see how I test my microphones in Asia, and I could see how I build my wafers in Germany, and I could see my warehouse in Shanghai, and I could see it all operating. So without customization, we could not have gotten the fields in there to run our business as we needed to. And so for me, that was a big selling point. Now, I will give a flip side real quick, if you don't mind. So we took the inventory, the transfer order. Does anybody know that transaction, right? The transfer order. We actually turned it into our nonconformance management process. So we went in and we actually changed the name of it to be called nonconformance. So when we need to put material on hold somewhere in the world, we use a transfer order, and we use that as our process for people to approve it. We have a suite flow wrapped around it, and we put it into a global, worldwide hold bank. So I love what I did and what we did, because all of a sudden it means that somebody in Asia goes and builds a product they're not supposed to, or they take a lot on hold and they build it into a lot. Again, we don't own the factories, they're not using our system. I know within 12 hours that they've done that, and I could stop it and not let it get out the door to a customer. We have control over our hold process. On the other hand, I've met a few other cases like running the MRP model where they used the transfer order transaction. And when I said, oh, we actually morphed that into a different transaction, they said, why did you do that? And I said, well, this was how I needed to run our business, and this was the best way to do it. So there was a case where I could tell you that we did a customization that bit us on another spot, yet I still stand behind what we did because it lets us run our quality hold process, and that is more important to us than some of the other needs or intended uses, I'll say, of the transfer order. I use basic inventory transfers for everything else I need. So I guess it's a pro and con thing. I still stand behind the customizations, but they could come back to bite you if you're not careful.
You have to have control process. As long as you have control management on your customizations,
Yep.
you don't end up using and reusing and misusing fields.
Yep.
And I hate customization.
It's 2-1. 2-1.
All right, who
We
likes
win.
customization? Raise your hand if you like customization.
And how many of you have performance issues?
Interesting.
Let's talk a little bit about the data and process validation. This is something that comes up a lot for us, where data's in NetSuite, and you can do a report, or export your data, or build an iChart on it. But the question is, are you looking at the right thing? And this is a topic that can go on for a long time, but I think it's of a lot of interest. What are some of the things that your teams do to make sure that, what you're seeing is, the truth, or as best as you can do it, both from a data perspective, but also that your processes are doing exactly what you want them to do?
Well, from our side with the data, we have very specific audience who we're looking through, whether we're going to the finance, whether we're going to the warehouse, whether we're going to like purchasing. We even have just a data analysis group, just because it's just more raw data to look at. But the key when you're looking at the data is, can you use it to make a business decision? I mean, I loved your graphs, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, I've seen those graphs before. How does it translate to my business? And if you have data and it's pretty and everyone goes, wow, and then they can't remember what that data represented as soon as the meeting is over, the data is useless. I mean, we are in a society of attention span issues. People are, and a third of you are here like probably checking, you got your email, you're wondering, how is my company running while I'm gone? But if you take something from this, that you realize that whatever you built, and when they look at it, and they walk out and they remember that image, then you built the right thing. And if they look at it and they go, yeah, I got to reply to Joe, then you've missed the mark. So when you can stop them from all the distractions in life for 60 seconds, it burns in, and it's visual, and visual is key, because it is worth 1,000 words.
In terms of, now if the visual is there, but it's inaccurate, let's say, is that something that you deal with before you build a visual? Or like, what sort of things can you do to just improve the trust in the system and the processes? And, what safety measures do you have? What sort of planning do you do ahead of time that really helps make sure that, what you see is what you get?
We've recently started building out a lot of internal workflows to try and do a lot of our data cleansing. It really falls on me in many cases. So as much as and as often as I try to go in and really cleanse the data and keep everything up to date, and we have sales teams, and sales teams are idiots, and so they do kind of whatever. Sorry if you're in sales. There's no telling how things get changed to what they do. So as much as I try and fix it, like I said, we've customized things. Don't put that in your column. To basically use workflows and try and do as much cleanup as we possibly can, and maybe very rudimentary, this than that kind of thing. But that helps out more than anything, and really cuts down on the workload for me. Sorry.
Okay, so I'll start out saying that as far as keeping the data cleansing of the conversation, first of all, I like to look to the users of the chart. So I remember the first time that I opened iCharts, I had a meeting, I think it was with Eric actually, right? And we developed the chart within the first 2 minutes, and I realized it was an easy to use tool, and I still use that chart to this day, that we developed within the first 2 minutes as this is what iCharts can do. There's other charts that I dreamed up that I thought I was so smart dreaming up that nobody ever looks at, I don't look at, and I said that was a big, colossal waste of my time. So first of all, the charts that you make that people use every day, your users will tell you when there's a problem. My boss asks me, he's got some he uses all the time, probably almost daily from what I can tell, and he'll come to me as soon as there's any anomaly. And some of it is even checking the operations side of my role. Hey, Brian, you said that you were going to ship X number of million pieces this month. It looks like you're only going to do this. What's the problem? Are you not getting out of your warehouse? Did you slip on production? Did a customer order push out? Where's this number? Or was there some other problem? And we even had a case where we had a return and replace, and that jumbled the numbers up. A report that we've been using for years that just hadn't flagged anybody because they had been much smaller. I think it was a little larger of a return. So kind of we have ongoing data checking for things that people use iCharts we regularly use. I do rely on my user base for that. We're a small company. I'm the supply chain team. We also run IT. The other side of it is we've become very good, and I definitely recommend, even if you haven't gotten into this or anybody else, we use a lot of the BI reporting auto email alerts. And we just keep setting them up more and more. So for example, we have a process where when we create a finished reel of microphones, we put on one of the early BOM components, like the test BOM, as opposed to the finished good. Our customers want to see both part numbers, so they know kind of the manufacturing part number and the final part number. So we have a script within Del Boomi that pastes that on. Well, sometimes it doesn't always work because perhaps maybe there was an error creating the reels, and then that number of reels on that particular run for the day didn't get the MN number. So we have an auto email alert that runs every day at 2 o'clock that emails us all the ones that didn't have it, and I have an analyst intern that goes in and fills them in real quick and takes her a few minutes. So what I realized was we probably have 15, 20 of these scripts now that constantly look at our data, and we run on a daily basis to show us where there's anomalies that are going to But whether it's affecting an iChart later or affecting a customer shipment later, it's going to tell us where there's a problem. We also have Delboomi running every night, and that's one of the best ways that we monitor our data in our supply chain. Factory A ships to Factory B. Factory B, 2 days later, 3 days later, after I get through my fun customs overseas, posts a receipt file. The receipt's there. If the exact quantity is not there, if the exact lot number is not there, if anything's missing, I get an error report overnight. So we constantly monitor errors in our supply chain through Boomi. We constantly monitor with saved searches. And again, I rely on my users in the iCharts to tell me where something doesn't make sense. And trust me, people at the V&C level drag me over in 5 seconds when something doesn't make sense in their office. They say, get over here, we need to show you this. When can this be fixed? Because I need to report to whoever at Bosch. So,
If you want to make sure you got the right reports to the right people, unpublish one. Because I do that. Where's my report? That's an important one. We put that one back. The easiest way to make sure people are using the report, don't let them have it, because they become dependent on it. And
can you monitor the log file?
I could, but
That's more fun?
Oh yeah. I assumed that all the employees were hired at, but for my amusement. But seriously, if you think your report isn't getting the audience, right, take it away from them. Because if it's important, they'll come back. Because they sit there and they're like, what happened to this? Or, no, I was dependent on it. I'm like, why are you dependent on it? Because now all of a sudden they told you why they're dependent, and they told you they're doing X on top of it. And you're like, well, we can add that for you. I mean, the thing that kills me is when we customize a report for a department, and then I find out that they export it into something and filter it. I'm like, really? How often do you do that? Oh, we only do it like 10 times a day for 5 minutes at a time. And we do it and you're like, okay, so basically we've lost an employee this year. Okay, that's great. So, yeah, unpublished is a really powerful tool. I'm sorry, I think he's been patiently trying to get out or ask a question.
Well, on the data cleansing process, like in our PeopleSoft environment, Oracle, we have a data warehouse, and the data's cleansed there. Is this just all live data in NetSuite? Just going against the real data? Does iCharts have a copy of it?
No, the iChart specific data is 100% native to NetSuite. So it's based off of safe searches, and so if it's inside of NetSuite, on safe search we can.
So that was one of the big reasons why we picked it. I always kind of talk about this back with the parent company, and I was the first division, as I said, that was allowed to go out in the cloud like this with an ERP. After I got it approved and put it in, I wanted to get to a charting software, and iCharts met all of the needs. But when I went back and started talking about it, it was a question I didn't ask up front. I was told, Brian, it just took 9 months for you to get approval to use a cloud-based ERP. You will not get approval within about the next 2 years to use any other cloud-based product. So you better get something that looks native and it behaves within NetSuite as opposed to going, and a lot of the other charting softwares that we came across were in another cloud somewhere. It's like, oh yeah, you just have to sign your data over to this cloud, that cloud. Guess what? My parent company is not very keen about doing that and signing that off every other week for me. So iCharts, that was a huge reason why we went with them, aside from functionality, obviously.
And let me ask you, you do market analysis. As soon as you hit send on the email, the data's stale. What good is it?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's that's one of the biggest things I tell everyone about iCharts. It's not necessarily what I can do with it. It's what I can send to other people because. I could pay a lot of money for a BI tool that I can sit there and play with all day long, and it does me absolutely no good if the other people in the organization don't have access to it. So iCharts is the perfect way to send out information. I'm not building spreadsheets all day long. I'm not rebuilding things. I'm not using stale data. It's live and accurate, and because I can customize it to the audience and put it on their dashboard, they're getting what they need and not what somebody else needs and all that extra stuff.
Well, to your point too, who in this room wants another integration to manage? Have another BI tool and another integration and another cloud-based middleware to do that, and you got to watch that too. It's like having, I don't know.
More kids.
Yeah, more kids. No, it's true.
We have another live one over
Question
here.
there? Yeah.
Yeah, question. John on the end mentioned the safe searches and sort of pulling the data down and manipulating it, kind of the frustration of that. And part of the reason our organization does a lot of that is we have a lot of customization, and so folks are trying to join more than 2 tables and things, so they have to do multiple safe searches, bring them down, and join them outside of NetSuite. My question is, to you, it was an iCharts question, given that we have a lot of custom fields with important business data in, does iCharts allow you to get around some of our limitations, multiple table joins plus getting those custom fields?
Andre, do you want to? We have our CTO here, so you might as well.
We had a plant in the room.
Okay. So the thing is, you cannot join different records, not custom records, and they're totally separated in NetSuite, right? What we have something called mashup, and a mashup is post-aggregation join. So you can query from different safe searches, and you can drill down based on the same dimensions and see everything on one chart. So you can have your opportunities and transactions on one chart.
But you have to run safe searches first and then store those somewhere?
No, everything on the fly. We run 2 safe searches, and in memory, we do the join.
Okay, so you're doing it that way. You're not going directly against the database.
We go against the database. We get the aggregates from each safe search, including the drill downs, and we mash that in memory and present it on the chart.
Okay, so your product's handling that then?
Yes,
So you can join across a number of tables?
up to 5.
Up to five.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So is it, when it's joined in the memory, does it refresh?
Yeah, it's full then. Everything is full.
Yeah, it actually works pretty slick too, where you basically have a simple thing to go in and say, I choose save search A, save search B, join them together on these fields and slap them through, and it goes in the iChart. And I could join up 2 tables and make a search in minutes. So the other thing to your question on best practices, I made a set of saved searches, iCharts, whatever B, iCharts, whatever C, and I keep them private and I don't let people touch them. Because obviously once you make your iChart searches and everything, you don't want other people going in and modifying it, even another admin. So basically I make them admin only. I've segregated them from the rest of the saved searches or my special iChart searches that feed all the tables. And just as a best practice.
Yeah, and we also have these master safe searches so that when you go in the studio, all the fields come up and then you can drag and drop. And so you don't have to customize the safe search outside of, for many things outside of the studio. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to revisit the data integrity. We're a few years into our NetSuite implementation, and now our leaders are really starting to look for how do we make better business decisions using the data we have. So as we start to do this, do you have any recommendations on the historical data that maybe isn't clean and how to make that work, or do you just abandon it and start from where you're at?
Good luck.
Oh, you never abandon data. Those who don't study history have to go back to summer school and take it again.
I like that.
So what we did is we sell candy, and there's quite a few varieties out there, so we have quite a few records, item records. And we had a large number of people who were in charge of setting up these records. So everyone had what they felt was the important things. And I don't really like making fields mandatory because a lot of them are conditionally mandatory. It's like, what's the tax percentage on this? Well, it has to be tax applied, then you apply. So we go through and we found the 18 or 20 core fields, and we use Boomi in a safe search, and we actually do a query against all of our items every night at 2 in the morning, and we list all these required fields. Like if we're going to a trading partner, we better have their number in it. So we have a report that every night comes out and it sends it to the data integrity team. It says, look what we broke today. And whatever we missed there, we get the report at 6 in the morning. It says, look at the data feeds we forgot to send out because the inventory wasn't correct, because you can't send the inventory without it. There's a lot of data. 90% I don't care, you don't care, nobody cares about it. I have no idea why it was ever recorded. But the 10% that you do care, make sure that's clean. And the rest of it, quarantine.
But were you talking historic data in NetSuite or outside of NetSuite?
In NetSuite.
In NetSuite, okay.
Do you want to talk about historic data outside of NetSuite?
Well, I had to grapple with this in 2014, right? So what do you do with your historic 7 years of data? And what we ended up deciding to do was we said there were certain things, journal entries, et cetera, that we brought in, but because our supply chain functions off work order issues, completions, assembly builds, et cetera, it's a lot of transactions and trying to recreate history as if it really happened in NetSuite. It was a lot of work. So we cut our losses, and I kind of always joke I have pre-NetSuite times and post-NetSuite implementation times data. And July 1st, 2014 was that line. And all historic data, we ended up taking what was important to us, like historic ships, et cetera. We made custom records for. We could still run reports on it, but we intentionally left it separated. The only people that cared, we said, well, what if I want to run a historic report farther back? It was a little problem for a while, but what is it now? 2014, 15, 16, 17, like 3, whatever years later, nobody has ever come back, I think in the last 2 years, asking me about historic data. Everyone runs reports are like, oh, 1 year's fine, 2 years fine, 3 years fine. It's like, now I've got it covered. And I told them that would be us someday. They didn't really believe me or want to believe me at the time, but it kind of got proven right that for the amount of times that people really missed it, I can count on one hand. And we just made a report in Excel and said, fine, Excel, here you go. Yep.
Yeah. So when, I personally like to get a dump of data and pull it out and use that one data source. But you want everyone else to see it in similar a pivot type look in NetSuite. So to do that before iChart, we have to do a couple things to make it look like pivot. So do you find now that with iChart, you don't have to do that, you just have that data source and you just let iChart do everything for you?
Absolutely.
Especially with the new release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys got early previews, right? Of the,
Yeah, we ripped
Yeah,
the snot out of it.
Yeah, even the people that had been using iCharts before, when I showed them the new version, they're just as astounded by the new version as they were when we first started using iCharts. So it's pretty impressive.
It's pretty slick.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, now you want to see it in certain ways, column across the top. And
Yep.
it's just, I really like that one data source and just let it do everything for you.
You take that one data source, you build it, you put it
Yeah.
out there, and then what you want to do is you go to your boss and you give them permission to
Well, they
manage
ask
it.
how do I
No,
do
wait,
this?
and you let them manage it, and within a day, it's all yours and they don't care.
Got one back there?
Can you talk a little bit about external data sources and this capability by iCharts to merge, or is that even possible? What your experience is?
It is possible. Do you want to talk about it, Andre? What advice?
Last time he comes.
So, no. Yes, it is possible. So
So pretty much the same question that you asked. So mashup is available for within NetSuite and NetSuite with external sources. And we work with the biggest data warehouses. I'm not going to mention names, but I'm sure.
And you're using some of the external data
Yeah, we
sources.
actually just finished up a project recently. Ehud back there kind of ran that for us, and we use 8x8. I'm sure you guys have seen them. They're our phone system. We have a customer service department, and we were able to bring in our call reporting into NetSuite, and then we've matched it up with our revenue as well. So we're not only just tracking, call volumes and drop calls and all that, but now we're actually able to calculate a true ROI right there on our customer service manager's dashboard. And she's excited about it. It cuts down a lot of time for her going multiple places, and it syncs beautifully. The team did a great job putting it together for us, and we've really been happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, across the board, I mean, from these guys to your support to everyone, I mean, it's just been a great experience since we started last year. I mean, we met you last year in San Jose, and we've been enjoying the ride ever since. So it's a quick implementation, and anyone here who's done the reporting, the data analysis, the pulling of everything. When you have that like aha moment when the report finally shows up, you're like, yeah, that's actually what I wanted. And you're sitting there, you're like, that is so cool. I could do it. It's almost like a daily thing. I mean, we were turning around a report a day. I mean, we were just publishing them and everything. And they're like, well, this is great. This is the one report we wanted. It's like, all right, here's the dashboard for the warehouse. There's 6 reports there. There's team reports, there's individual reports, there's picks, there's ships. We just put another report in there. Great. Here's what day? We're in Vegas. What day is it? Tuesday.
Well, you already forgot what day it is.
I've been here since Saturday. Okay, it could still be Saturday. I know today how many orders we're going to get because I know how many I got 7 days ago, 14 days ago, 21 days ago, 28 days ago. We can go through, and my management team thinks I'm brilliant, and I'm not. I'm just really good at making software decisions because the tool we actually did the analysis. And we told them one day, we're missing orders. And we contacted our trading partner, and the next morning we said, they're going to send them all, and we're going to get 2,100 orders from them today. And we got 2,069 orders. And I said, well, we'll fix the algorithm and find out where we missed those 31. We'll figure out why we were off by that. But we also did analysis in October, and we forecasted sales for the end of the year for the board. And I think we were within 2%, and we understated. And I figured, understating is better than overstating, but the tools give it to you because they give you the trends.
I want to go back to your point too. It's something that organizations kind of grapple with once you start thinking about this. A visualization of your data and looking at charts where the anomalies pop out at you and you go and managing them versus the data dump pivot. And it didn't hit me how big of a shift in thinking that is. And I'm not saying there's a one-size-fits-all answer for everyone, but I want to go with the visualization way, looking at a chart because I'm too busy, responsible for operations, IT, in a 70-person company shipping all over the world. I just don't have the time to sift through large amounts of data. I'm a data guy, I love data, taught classes in data, but I don't want to be sifting through it every day. I want to come in, look at my dashboard, and know what my factories did overnight before I go get my rear end kicked at a meeting because my factories didn't do what they were supposed to do, and I got management going, hey, Brian, answer to this. Why didn't they ship what they were supposed to, right? So I was talking to some folks at our parent company who were looking at our charts. They were interested in NetSuite, the iCharts, they were looking at it, and they were from the German side. And they looked at it and said, well, but we want to look at it like this, and can you give us a report from your business like this and this? And I remember getting it's about a year ago, I got so frustrated talking with them, and I'm like, just, after a meeting, I think I walked to get a coffee, and I'm just like, they just don't see it, and then I'm like, wait a minute, it's not, I shouldn't be frustrated. They don't see it because it's a different thinking. They want to dump everything in their power, orders, billings, bookings, backlog, ships, inventory, this, that, and compare it and try to look for exceptions and write Excel formulas. They want to look at their whole business. I've let go of that. Maybe 2.5, 3 years ago as I got into iCharts. I let go of that, and I want to look at a chart with 5 bars, and those 5 bars should, 2 or 3 of them say, this is what you should focus your day's efforts on. And think about that as you think going forward on iCharts. It's a big difference in thinking. From an efficiency perspective, I think it's better personally, but you absolutely have to change your thinking from where you want to look at a massive Excel sheet that goes out to BZ or whatever the top says and down to line 7,000 and look at 5 charts on the dashboard and say, these are the 5 things I have to do today. This chart says this chart has 2 problems, this chart's perfect, this this has 2. 5 things, I got to tell my team what to do, and I got to go to 27 meetings.
Well, it's very apparent to me because I did a lot of the pretty reports. And when we started going through the training, and they said, let me see the report, and I'm thinking they're going to think that I'm a genius because these reports look very nice. But when it says, well, we're just going to flatten out the data, we're going to just do the iChart, I'm just going to take a snapshot of my reports, hang it up, because it looks like we can do everything now with just the raw data and just letting that do the data. So it became quite apparent that you just don't need all that other stuff.
Sorry, Microsoft, but I don't like PowerPoint. I try to walk into meetings and show my dashboard and click through, and it works pretty well. And I've kind of replaced my need for PowerPoint.
We'll use your revolving reports. It's even better.
Yeah.
I believe Brian and Gary touched on this a little bit, so I'm curious if you could elaborate. You mentioned
We can try.
that's enough for me. But the two of you mentioned some tools or some reports that you use to get to that kind of maybe data integrity or data cleansing. Some of the tools that you use to tell you here are the problematic entries or here's what does not mesh up with how it's supposed to be. Would you be able to elaborate or maybe name some of those tools that you use?
It's a safe search, and then
Yeah.
I'll let you follow through. To follow up on your point, you had data integrity. How much of the data do I care about? We identified the 20 fields that she needed that were important. So we wrote a safe search that said, give me every item in our system that's active and not discontinued, because it could be discontinued, but we still have stock and we're just not getting any more. And then the save search would basically return every active item in those 20 fields. Boomi would then take that data and go through, and it said, if this is going to this trading partner, is the trading partner's number in here? If this is going out, it better have a weight, it better have, it's heat sensitive, it better have all the key components, like UPC. I mean, yeah, I have a piece of chocolate for you, like really? So does the whole world, so give me UPC. So identify those fields, pull them out. The save search takes that raw data, Boomi goes through with all its business rules and says, okay, these are the exceptions, and we get a very small subset of things to worry about. And what we can do, if you wanted, because maybe you care about more of the data, you can add the extra fields and just don't validate it. So anything that looks like you're wrong here and I have to clean it up, clean up the rest of the record if you want.
So
But use a safe search.
So Boomi does that for you. It's not really an inherent feature of NetSuite or anything else. It's kind of a third-party
It's,
functionality you add.
can I say bastardization? It's a bastardization of all tools. It really is. It's the raw data from NetSuite. It's the data integrity or the business rules from Boomi. It's putting it into an Excel file when you're at the end because you don't want to give everyone a sledgehammer to every time they have a push pin. No, it's like, here, don't hurt yourself. Here's what you have to focus on. There's no one great report. However, I'm going to put iCharts on top of it. So at least from a management standpoint, they can see there was 500 exceptions last night. There was 400 exceptions the night before. Someone did something wrong. If the numbers are reversed, there was 500 2 days ago and 400 days ago, someone's like, they worked yesterday, so we don't have to worry about it. But to your point, and to your point also, 5 little charts to focus on, the numbers going up, the numbers going down. That's business. Sales are up, sales are down. Revenue's up, revenue's down. Inventory's up, inventory's down. It's very, very easy. Because the only thing that stays the same is, well, actually nothing. You're either growing or you're dying. Take your pick.
So I'll add in, for me, of course, as I said, I use Boomi to connect to the supply chain, so it reports me integration errors, which is a little bit different than errors in NetSuite. An integration error might be site A shipped something and site B tried to receive a different quantity, and someone's not telling the truth, right? And that's a little different than I think what you're getting at. I use just purely save searches through the BI tool to do what you're looking for. Someone didn't put in a field, I mapped the save search right exactly, show me the error, set up the auto email, have it email myself or one of my interns or whatever to go fix.
And that's kind of what I'm curious about, that little email functionality, that little nudge that says
Yep.
something's messed up. Is that
Right in save searches.
Well,
You just click on the email communication tab and
Depends how you want to do it, though.
Set the
you can
schedule.
either run the report and do it, or you can set up if you're really concerned about your data.
Yep.
So when they save the item and they save it wrong, it sends the email then.
That's true too. And you could also put on validation on the records with workflow. So there's a lot of, we do all of those. But
I caution you, though. It's,
on the validation side?
yeah, well, with all the alerts.
Yeah.
Because the more things I tell you are wrong, you don't read any of them.
that's true too. 100%
And
true.
one of the things that we do with we have a lot of data. We got no shortage of data. So we look at the different criteria and we say, if this bill is this and this is less than this, then put a little action code here and say, hey, when you look at this report, one report, this is wrong with that report, and this is wrong with this. So it gives you everything in one report, what is wrong. So it's not an alert, it's not an email. You look at this one report, everybody can see it, and you don't want your name being highlighted pink, because that's what's so
My team yells at me for using the phrase, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, but with programming and as a former programmer, there's a lot of ways to skin the cat on this one. And I think now we've named 5 different methods here in the last few minutes that you could use. So there's a lot of options, and you just got to pick the one you're most comfortable with, because I think he's using Boomi to get to the same spot that I'm not getting, even though I could use Boomi because we use it. I'm using just a safe search, or in some cases a sweet flow to get to the same spot. So.
We're running out of time. Just before we take any more questions, one last thing. If you were to look at, talk to yourself a couple years ago about to embark on this journey, like, what do you wish you had known, or what would you tell someone that's about to start?
Don't do it. No,
Run, don't walk.
Actually, I did not get the pleasure of being in the implementation for NetSuite for my company. I came in right as we launched, and I'm still friends with him, but our IT director at the time is no longer with us. And every day I want to call him up and go, "What were you thinking when you did this?" And I know he was doing a big implementation in a short amount of time, but there are a lot of things that I would have set up much differently. And to your point, 2 years later, you're in NetSuite, and now you're trying to figure out what can we do with it, right? Because it takes a while just to be in it and working with it. So, as we mentioned before, I think the first thing, like you said, was really thinking through the logic of what you want to do with it, where you need to go, what you really need the data to tell you. As much as you can sit down and map it out and figure those things out, it will make your life so much easier, and you won't have to go back and fix your mistakes later on.
I'd say over half the reports we have now that we've written, we had no intention of writing when we bought the software, but then we realized we could. No one even envisioned it. It was like, all right, now what? What's the next step? So. Like for anyone on the IT side, it's like, here's your project plan for the next 12 months. You're like, that's awesome, that's great, I'll sign that. 6 months, you changed 400 times. I mean, it's like, you can't plan 12 months out, so you gotta stay focused. You have to get day to day. And if you can give the right reports to your work staff to get through the day to day, you can now focus on Q1, Q2, Q3. But trying to focus where you're gonna be 12 months from now, go down to the craps table.
I think for me, I went to school for engineering. If you told me when I was getting my degree that I'd be putting in the IT systems for a company, I would have been like, yeah, you're crazy. I'm never going to get into that. But I kind of got into programming. I liked it. When I found NetSuite, it was a way for me to run the business, run operations, run the businesses we needed to run without me having to program it myself. And so I don't have a lot of I wish I didn't, and that's probably why I've been up here on stage for different things the last 3 years at SuiteWorld, probably because I don't have a bad thing to say about NetSuite. It's let us solve the business problems, run it so much better than we used to. It's let us scale, I don't know, 20 or 40x or whatever since when we started putting it in. And it's been actually it's been very fun, and I've made a lot of good networking and contacts all over the world getting into the NetSuite product. But if I had to look back and say, younger Brian, let's see, I would tell myself my third child was going to keep me really busy right now. He's a 2-year-old right now, so I definitely would have told myself that. I have a 6'4" and a 2-year-old, so the kids exhaust me. I would have told myself that, just save some energy or drink some more caffeine. I definitely let saved searches become a jungle over the years, and I'm sure some of you also have. I wish I had done a little bit better job on that one. And I'm not saying this just for the sake of Rico. I would have put more time into analytics. Carved out just a little bit more time because I know there's stuff that my team and I are doing, and I'm busy, and I'm running around, I'm trying to keep up with the factories, and I say, this should be an iChart. This should be whatever, this kind of automation. So I wish I'd put more time into the analytics because if I could freeze time, there's not part of iCharts that lets me freeze time, right?
No,
if I could freeze time, I could make several more advances in our analytics and make the team more efficient and the company more efficient. And if I had just told myself, carve out another hour or two a month just to do that, I could have, but that would probably be my advice to myself 3 or 4 years ago when we got embarked on this journey.
The number one thing you need to do is when you're done developing your save search and your report, 15 minutes and document what the hell you did. Because 6 months from now, they're going to be like, do you have a report? And I'm like, I think so. I got 1,300. I think one of them does that. And you have nothing bad to say about NetSuite. I'll give you, I don't like the fact that when I do save searches, I don't have a place to put a summary of what the save search is. Okay, I wrote this search for X on this day. Great, I changed the fields. I don't know why I changed the fields, but if I could document what I did and then take advantage of the knowledge base, and I'm not saying this because my boss is in Vegas and he can cancel my card, but with these searches, publish them because it's great that I can tell you 27 times how to do it, but put in the knowledge base so that they can go there and look. We show them how to do it once, and they can build on that. NetSuite doesn't have a lot of the things that we want. We wanted to search by description, or we wanted to search by a short word or something. And there was no way to do it. So I was looking, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but our purchasing team would go to our website and search for the item on our website to get the SKU, to go back into NetSuite to insert the SKU, to get the information. And I'm like, well, that's a lot of lefts to take a right. Why don't we just write a save search? Like, because NetSuite doesn't do it. And I'm like, okay, there it is. Right? 3 months later, what are you doing? Well, we don't have a way to look for the description. Document what you did. People want to be easy. And they've always told me, if you want to find a way to find a deficiency, find the laziest person to do the job. And I am that person. Because I don't mind doing it, but I don't want to do it twice.
And that sounds like wonderful words of wisdom to finish on. So, thank you all for coming. Thank you for being amazing panelists.